So good morning, welcome to the IOOI Innovation 2012. A warm welcome to all of our return guests and all the new guests. Thank you very much for making all the long way and short way to the venue today. My name is Kristina Vojnarovic. I'm the president of Marseille Pixel Foundation, and next to me is Geir Fager, who's the CEO of Marseille Pixel. So we would like to introduce Leon Gauci, and the curator of the museum, who's going to say a couple of words about the venue and event opening.
Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome to the Maritime Museum. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of where you are this morning and what this building is all about. You are currently sitting down in a bakery. This is the largest bakery we have on the island, and it is now home to the Malta Maritime Museum. The Maritime Museum has been open only for 20 years. Only last June we have celebrated our 20th anniversary, and we have been home to Malta's maritime history, as I have already said, for the last 20 years. The building was the Royal Naval Bakery, where 6,000 loaves of bread were baked every day. We still have 6 ovens which still work out of the 12 ovens which were in use here. Always remember that the Royal Navy, the fleet was larger, the Mediterranean fleet was larger than the home fleet. That is, the fleet that was defending Britain was smaller than the fleet defending the Mediterranean. We, as a museum here, have the task to give the story of Malta, Malta's maritime past, which starts around 6000 BC up till today. It's a very long story, which we are still telling, which we are still enlarging, even as a museum space. We only have 1/3 of the museum open to the public, and you can actually walk through our maritime history downstairs while you're coming in. I don't know if you noticed, for example, that large lead anchor downstairs just next to the lift. That is the largest Roman anchor in existence in the world. You cannot see anything larger than that. That is 4.3 tons of lead used on these large grain ships the Romans used to use to supply Rome with enough wheat from North Africa, from Libya and Tunisia, which today Libya and Tunisia, they were Cyrenaica back then. We have a lot of artifacts in our museum. We have around 20,000 artifacts at the moment in our collection, as I said, which vary from things which are Roman, from other things which are from the Libyan crisis of last year, artifacts from the British ships which were working off Malta during the Libyan crisis. We have a lot of artifacts. Some artifacts will be, of course, of interest to you today, which I do invite you to go and see these artifacts in the museum. The museum is open for you all throughout today, all throughout the conference. Some stuff which we have in the museum relates to, as I call them, GPS of the 18th century, of the 17th century. We have a collection of navigational instruments, which date back to the 16th century up to the 19th and 20th century. The earliest thing we have from which was a navigational tool is an octoroon, which is this round bronze thingy, if we can call it that, to use a Blackadder quote, which was used to follow the stars at night. Of course, navigation at night was done following the stars, usually the North Star, and you would know where you are in the Mediterranean. During the day, of course, usually sailing was done as coast hugging. But when you could not see the coast, you would use a sextant or other tools and capable instruments which we have in the museum. But our pride as a museum when it comes to navigational instruments are portable. What are portables? These are books, literally books, handwritten by captains. And what is very interesting is that we have books, these portals, written by Maltese sailors, or we have 2 by Maltese sailors, 1 by a French captain. These were written, handwritten, so you're a captain, you're following, going around the Mediterranean, and for example, you have just landed in Lampedusa, and you write in this book, I am at Lampedusa, we have just brought water up from the east part of the harbour, and the wind is northwesterly, and we have anchored to the west side of the harbour. You write this down, then you give the book to your son. 20 years later, he is in Lampedusa. He looks up where his father had anchored his ship, and he will find all the information where he'll get the fresh water from, or where he'll get, most importantly, apart from the water, was, for example, firewood, which was very important to cook your food. And you'll look up, and you'll find what your father, the captain, had wrote. And you will say, my father had said that firewood was very plentiful to the east of the island. However, we found nothing, and we have found it to the north of the island. And you actually, these lovely documents are very important, because you find, for example, 4, 5 generations of captains of the same family, from the same place, for example, from Sanglia, which have used this book for nearly 100 years. And luckily, some still exist, and we buy them from auctions, or also we have been donated these artifacts. I do invite you to go and look for them in the museum. They are just right next to this large ship that we have the model of the ship. Just behind there, you will see all these instruments. Always remember as well, all the models that you see in the museum, all of them are original. So that large model there, which is one of the centerpieces of our museum, that is 300 years old, used at the nautical school in Valletta to teach young boys from 8 years to 16 years old how to work the ropes on a ship, or also for the carpenters, how the ship was built. One last thing, we are very lucky on the island as historians to have a lot of details. So for all of you who are, for example, a nautical trade, we can tell you what students back in the 18th century were given as provisions. Each student was given hot chocolate every night, for example, and if you did very well and you were a good student, you were given a cow's eyeball in your minestrone every evening. It was considered to be very, very healthy. I will leave you with that. I hope you have a very successful conference. Thank you once again for coming to the Maritime Museum, and enjoy your day here at the museum. Thank you.